Hey everybody, I'm Shaun Blakeney, Senior Pastor of Anchor Church, and welcome to Afterthought. This is the podcast where we go back into the message and talk about all the things I didn't get to say, wished I'd said, or wanted to go deeper on. Think of this as the sermon after the sermon. Unfiltered, honest, and from the heart. I'm grateful you're here. I'm excited for what God is going to do through this podcast. Now, let's dive in today's Afterthought. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Afterthought. This podcast where we're talking about all the things that I didn't say in the sermon, things I wish I said in the sermon, and obviously 30 minutes is not enough time in a sermon. Easter was tough. Easter was really tough because I had like 20 minutes, which I think I took more like 28.
You did great.
I did great, but this is that opportunity for us to dive into those things that, I really wish I had time to say. And Teresa takes copious notes on the things I should have said, things that I wished I would have said. And this is that time for us to dial in. And this was our Vision Sunday, and this whole vision for us pouring into valuing, encouraging, empowering, lifting up the next generation. It was an incredible Sunday. So, hey, hope you're loving this podcast. Drop a comment down there, like it, subscribe, share with a friend. We love doing this, but we love that you love it as well. So, what'd you think about the weekend, honey?
I thought it was amazing. It is such an exciting time. I just sitting here thinking about it again. I get all excited. It's a great time to be at Anchor Church.
Yeah, I was talking to Teresa about the things we're going to talk about on the podcast, and she just started crying before we even got to the questions. So I knew this was going to be an incredible podcast already. But babe, just think about, like, for you, I told you I want to talk about this today because I feel so much for the next generation.
Yeah.
Things are way different. Kids are kids, but times are way different. The things that kids are faced with now with stuff that I don't think we ever were faced with as kids. I think the anxiety level of kids, fear that kids have, just the stuff that just pressures them that we probably never felt in our growing up. But I told you one of the things I was really impacted on was how our kids are now in full-time ministry, but that wasn't accidental. That was intentional. I want to ask you, just tell us a little bit about how our kids got involved in church, why they were involved in church, the power of them being involved in church, which now we see that come to full fruition of them serving in the church. And people always say to us, oh my gosh, it'd be so great if our kids served in church like your kids. What'd you guys do? I'm like, well, we made them be there.
Yeah.
What are, like, give us some examples, honey, or get a snapshot of the kids' childhood and them being a part of the church.
I didn't grow up in the church, so I didn't experience church till I was in college. And when we had kids, I knew there were just certain things I wanted for their lives that I didn't have the opportunity to experience. And church was one of them. So anytime the doors were open, yes, they were the pastor's kid and they were expected to be there. But regardless, they were there, and we wanted to make sure they loved it. We didn't want to feel like we were dragging them there.
Yeah.
We wanted it to be a place where they felt loved and they were known and they felt the love of Jesus every time they came through the doors. And so we just made sure they were there. We made sure they knew they had a purpose there. They weren't just coming because they were kids, our kids, the pastor's kids. They were coming because they had a purpose, and these environments allowed them the opportunity to find their giftings very early.
Yeah. And
I think that's so important because it's, your gift isn't necessarily bestowed upon you when you become an adult.
Yeah, right.
You're born, when you accept the Lord, but even before that, the Lord is working in you, and He has given you stuff that is going to come out of you even before you realize that He's the source. But I feel like growing up in the church, our kids learned very early that they had very specific giftings that could be used. I remember Alyssa, I think she was 6th grade when she went and led worship on main platform at one of the biggest churches I knew of at the time. And she was just a little peanut up there singing her heart out and worshiping. And I just thought, where else would she have an opportunity to learn that God has given her this gift, and she got to use it to worship Him? And I think,
and that really that ownership, or someone believing in her, opened up that idea in her mind that maybe this is what I'm called to do. And I wonder if that opportunity wasn't given, would she have still obviously God had his hand on her, but I think being in 6th grade at such a young age, that opportunity gave her the mindset that maybe this call is something I'm supposed to do in my future.
She knew she could sing from very early on, and I feel like she really wanted to do Broadway. I was all set for her to go to Broadway and be a Broadway mom, but it wasn't until, she'd been leading worship at church for many, many years, and it wasn't until her junior year in high school she said, "Mom, I'm not going to Broadway. I feel the call to ministry. I feel like I'm not just supposed to be a worship leader. I'm supposed to be a worship pastor." And that changed everything. It changed her trajectory. But it's because she had all those early formative years growing up in the house and worshiping and understanding what that means and how to lead out in that. It finally clicked in that junior year. But I think of Austin, who was always the shy kid. And I would have not have pictured him getting into ministry like he is. But he always he could dance. We didn't know he could dance. He started leading
no idea he could
kids
dance.
worship because he'd get up there and he's the energy creator, and he just would get up there and lead worship. And it was so fun to watch that come out of him. But he's also always been the kid who's just a hard worker. And he loved manual labor. And I remember when we started Belglade, and he went in his junior high years, and he had broken his hand in football, and he was there with the cast, and they were building those planters.
Planters, right?
For the gardens, and he had his cast on, and it was brown, and it smelled like fertilizer for the rest of the trip till he could get home and get it taken and changed out. But he enjoyed that so much, and just being able to serve that brought. He has such a heart to serve. And I really feel like that. Those opportunities when they were young and getting to do those things at a young age, they found what they were called to do.
I'm probably going to tick off people by saying this, but I feel like now in our culture, I see a lot of parents that allow their kids to dictate their life, not the parents dictate the life of the kid. And I see parents now that travel on the weekend for sports, and our kids were awesome. Was a great athlete. Played football, baseball, soccer. What could have been on traveling teams, but we just said no. Church is a priority. And Alyssa, we instilled in her at a very young age that God always comes first in your purpose in your life. Whatever it is you do, God comes first. And she wanted to be on Broadway. That was her whole thing. She was pursuing it, was doing acting lessons, music, all that kind of stuff. And yet I remember in high school she had opportunities for lots of huge productions, getting star leads, but it conflicted with her leading worship at church. And she knew what I want to do in my future is pursue kingdom things. And so she gave up all the musical theater stuff. And that wasn't because we made her, but I do believe it was our discipline and encouragement building into them when they were younger, what priority takes precedent in your life, and that is always Jesus. And I've said it before, going to church doesn't make you a Christian, but it does put in place a perspective of your priorities to know that God has got to come first. Because I think parents, what are you instilling in your kid when you let them know, hey, we're missing church Sunday because you've got a football game. We're missing, no, we're not missing. And I'm not saying that those parents are bad parents. I'm just saying you're instilling in your kids priorities. And so I look at our kids, and we instilled in them, and there were times I'm sure our kids were tired on Sundays and didn't go to church. And they were whatever. We're like, we go to church. That's what we do, and we instill that in them now. And to see them involved in ministry, their spouses involved in ministry, their kids at church, I know we instilled in them the right thing. And so I'm just encouraging the parents out there, don't let your kid dictate their life to you. You dictate their life to them. That is a biblical responsibility you have as parents, to lead your kids in the God-honoring way. And what we're showing them is what matters is not Jesus. And people go, oh, going to church doesn't matter. Yeah, but you're instilling in them a priority of what does matter. That means everything else comes before church. No, man. The bride of Christ comes first. Jesus comes first. Serving him comes first. And then everything out kind of comes from that.
Yeah, and I love the verse that you preached from this weekend, from Joshua 4.
Yeah.
Joshua is one of my favorite characters, first of all, in the Bible to begin with. But that whole story about when they are crossing the water and that they step in with the ark, and the priests stand there with the ark in the middle of the Jordan, and it parts for everyone to cross. This is where they're entering the promised land for the first time, and this miracle happens where they can cross on dry land once again. And I love that Joshua has them go create a monument, essentially, from
the 12 stones,
from
right?
The stones. But I thought it was really interesting that he said, "Do this because your children will ask about this. Your children need to know about this." What do you think about that?
I think, babe, in regards to that passage, I talked about it this weekend, but we think day to day. God thinks generation to generation.
Yeah.
And I think what he's trying to instill in the Israelites is you need to set up memorials to remind your kids and your kids' kids of who I am and what I did. If you don't talk about it, if you don't get it in their mind and get it in their heart, they're going to forget they're going to forget. Well, I mean, I think about this in my context of my life. How many things has God done for us since we started Anchor Church that are so supernatural? There's no way we could have done it. It had to be God. And yet, I still forget those ways that God came through. If I don't write it down, if I don't remind myself, and so as parents, you're going to go through life and you're going to forget what I did. So set up memorials. And when your kids go, what are those stones for? Man, let me tell you what those stones were for. Those stones remind us that we walked across on dry ground. We should not even be in the promised land. We were in slavery. But God led us out of slavery into a promised land, and he took us across on dry ground at high tide in the Jordan River to go into what was promised to us long ago. And these rocks, these stones are memorials so that we'll never forget what Jesus did for us. And that's why I go back to us instilling in our kids the importance of church and following Jesus, because, man, he has done so much for us. We make him first in our lives. Like, we pray before every meal. We are spending time in God's word. We are getting involved in church. We're not just going to come and be an attender. We're going to come and be a leader, be a mentor, be a coach. We're going to serve in a ministry. Why? Because people matter, and Jesus changed us, and we want to help change other people. And so I think for me, like, if I'm honest, I think church on a Sunday is a stone for kids. It's a memorial for kids, for us to go, man, I know we have so much going on in our lives, kids. We could be at swim practice. We could be at football. We could be at soccer. We could be at Disney. There's so many places we could be. But, man, the Lord changed our life. And church is a reminder. It's a memorial. It's a stone for us that we're going to come worship together as a family to remind us, because we forget all the time, who is top priority, who gets top billing, and who is our top king.
And you know what I love about that,
the
church being a memorial? If you go a little bit further in Joshua 4, it talks about how Joshua followed the Lord, leading him to get those 12 stones.
Yeah.
And these weren't little stones. These were ones.
Massive.
This wasn't like what David flung into
like, here's a stone, kids. Remember the Lord, right?
That. No, these were things they had to carry on their shoulders. So each one grabbed one of these big stones and carried it to where they would camp that night. So that would be where they remember they came across. But I think it's so cool that Joshua took it one step further, and he gathered 12 more stones in the center of the river and built a memorial there. Because when the waters would come back through, you may not see that, but like in time of drought, when the waters subside, and the children would look back and go, it is a rough time right now, but that is God's faithfulness. We can look to that. And I just think so much like what you're talking about, the church being.
Yeah, it is memorial. You know, I think about it, honey, in our context. We started Anchor Church. We've given our lives to full-time ministry, and we see our kids and their spouses in full-time ministry. And it does my heart so good to know that what we instilled in them is just not, hey, you're a great athlete. What we instilled in them is that you're a special child of the King. And what I love about that is when we are dead and gone, we have left a legacy, and we see our kids leaving that legacy to their kids. And so what stirs in my heart is, what legacy am I leaving for my kids? That pomp and circumstance matters, or that Jesus Christ. I mean, some people care more about what college they get into than following Jesus. I'm not saying that's not important, but I look back on it, I'm just like, man, the most important thing we ever gave to our kids was the importance of loving and following Jesus. The biggest thing we ever instilled in them is not, yes, you're a great athlete. Yes, you are confident kids. Yes, you are good-looking kids. Yes, you are talented kids. Yes, you are smart, intelligent kids. But the best thing we could ever instill in you is you are a child of God. And I think I think giving kids that opportunity to, I'm not going to go, I'm tired. Dude, come on. You're going to church. Like, we are going to church. And as long as you're in my house, we are going to be in the house of God. And you may not like it, but we're making sacrifices in this. Like I see parents like, well, he was 15, he didn't want to come. I'm like, well, he's 15, didn't want to come. you pull him into the car and you get him here. Like those are the kind of things where it's like they don't get a choice. You're helping them shape their 15-year-old brain to know that this. I mean, every kid in our church that is in middle school or high school should be in Wednesday night youth program.
Yeah.
I talked to Pastor Caleb. I'm just like, dude, we have so many youth. Well, they're busy. They're this. I'm like, dude, what? Are you kidding me? What's more important? Like, what are your priorities? And I'm not saying going to church makes you a Christian, but I do think it reveals where your priorities are. What takes precedent? Yes, school's important, but our kids never miss church because they had to study for a test. Never.
Yep.
There's other opportunities to study for a test. Like if school and your grades get in the way of following Christ, man, then we need to figure out some priorities for you.
Yeah.
And that's just the stuff that, we try to instill in. Babe, what would you say to, put you on the spot for a second, what would you say to a parent out there that's watching that's like, but you don't understand, my kid's different, like, because I know that's happening right now. What would you say to those parents like, my kid's different, you don't know them, they're hard-headed, they're this, we've tried, we've done all these things, like, they just don't want to come. What would you say to them to encourage them that, like, I'm putting you on the spot?
You are, because
we're different kind of parents. We're strict disciplinarians.
I mean, you're the parent.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but be the parent.
Yeah.
You are in charge of them till they move out.
And you will be judged on how you parented them.
Absolutely. I would hate to look back and, and think that I didn't do everything I could to make Jesus the priority in our kid's life.
Yeah.
And it may have caused some hardship and some stress at times, dragging them. Sometimes it was literally dragging them to church, but it showed them we're not messing in this area. This is a priority, and this is what you're going to be. If you're going to be a member of this family, this is what you're going to do until you're old enough to get out and do your own thing, which I would hope would be to still follow in the footsteps of Jesus. But until you're on your own, you're here, and you're doing what we're impressing upon you, because that's what we think is best for you.
And I think about that in regards to, like I said, the life of our kids. We did not force them to go into ministry. We didn't. Austin wanted to be a doctor. I think Alyssa wanted to be a veterinarian for a long time. We never forced them, like, you're going to be in full-time ministry. That's a call of God. Yeah. But we did instill in them, you are going to be in the house of God, right? The call of God is one thing. Absolutely. The house of God's another thing. And so for us, you can do whatever you want to do in life. Whatever profession you choose, we are proud of you. We love you. We're behind you. But Jesus will always take precedent in your spiritual walk, And I think that those are the kind of things that I think parents are like, well, my kid's not going to go to full-time ministry. This has nothing to do with that. I mean, our kids were going to go at pre-med and veterinarian. And we were like, whatever they want to do, that's great. But God instilled a call in them. But I believe, if I'm honest, honey, I don't want to say forcing, but us encouraging with commitment for them to be at church, I do believe opened the door of obedience and surrender for them to hear the call of God in their life. Yeah. I think it was those years of us instilling in them the importance of being at church and them being in church and involved in ministry and serving in ministry that allowed their heart and mind to be open to hear the voice of God. And so, why? Because I believe this is an atmosphere that's conducive to hear God, right? And so I think for lots of parents out there that are going, man, why should I get my kid in church? Man, A, because they need it. B, because they need to hear from the Lord. And, it's going to be really hard to speak if they're not in environments where God wants to speak. And
I think that's why it's important, as we're doing this Vision Sunday that we just had, everything you laid out, it's so purposeful with making our next gen the priority, because it needs to be the priority.
Yeah.
We need to help. We need to come alongside families and help make church the place your kids want to be.
That's right.
And that's what we're trying to do. I know not everybody necessarily has heard your sermon this weekend, but there's so much that we have vision for in our next gen ministries.
Yeah. Well, and if you did miss it, our plans are to start a daycare Our plans are to have a special need ministry. That has been on my heart for so long. We have so many parents involved in our church to have kids with special needs, and they want to be here. They want to be a part of worship, but we don't have environments for their kids, and so we want to have those sensory areas. We're going to have Johnson Beyond, our own accredited Bible college right here on our campus for like the first time ever. And so I look at all that's happening and what God is doing, and that involves all of us
absolutely
building up pouring back into the next generation, building up and so, for our I Love Anchor offering, they can financially, we can give that because we have to build out our kids area. We got 30,000 square foot of space that, by the way, we did not find this space. This space found us. Right. We didn't come looking for this. God brought this to us, which I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. God wants us to use it for his purpose. With the community we're in, we need to reach the community, reach the next generation. It's a stormy world, and we need to be a calm in the midst of the storm. And we got to build that out. It's $322,000 for the build out. So you can give to that. I'm going to encourage everyone to give to that. And here's the deal: we're not going to take out a loan. We're going to build as the money comes in. And so people go, man, when's the daycare going to start? When we get the funding to start it. I mean, it's a lot. All the research with our lawyers and stuff we've done, it's a lot, and we're plugging away to get it done. But it takes time, it takes resource, and it takes people. Like, maybe you're like, man, I want to be a part of it financially, but what else can I do physically? Man, serve, mentor. If you're not serving in our kids or youth ministry, come on. Like, we're jonesing to get people to serve in these areas. We're like, we need people to, and turnaround is quick in those areas because it gets tiring. So, man, step up and mentor these kids. Let's not hope they get in the right direction. Let's set them in the right direction. Babe, real quick, we had a couple minutes left. Before we're going to wrap up and close, I pitched this weekend all these things for the build-out, construction, all these renovation things we're going to do. Out of all the things that I talked about, what are you most excited about in the construction renovation phase of getting this building ready for the next generation?
I love it all. I don't even know how to. I love next gen stuff. We worked youth ministry for so long.
Yeah, 20 plus years.
It's just a place our hearts are so deeply attached to. But if I stop and really think about everything we want to do, I honestly think the new entrance is probably the biggest thing for me, because right now we have that big roll-up door, garage door, and it's closed all week because it's ridiculous to open and close that thing all the week through, and no one knows how. If you don't know the secret door and the secret handshake to get in that door, you don't know how to get into church.
Where the doorbell is, right? So, Amazon has a hard time finding us.
Seriously. So I feel like with a new entrance that has glass doors that are welcoming and people will see how they can come, we will be the place where they will come. Yeah. And right now, I feel like we come on Sundays, we gather, and Wednesdays, but really it feels so distant from our community, and I want to open it up. I want people to come. I want kids to come here after school. I want them to come hang out here. I want this to be the place people want to gather all the time. So I feel like that entrance is super important.
Yeah, and if you have an indoor building, it was an old movie theater, and we renovated it into a church, and so it's 30,000 square feet, but there's 8 theaters and lots of theater seating and stuff like that, and they had a huge roll-up garage door that would just open up, and they would have that open up for movies, and so trying to get in here is like finding a bat cave. Like there's just there's no entrance. And so I think it's $50,000 to build this new entrance. And it's hurricane glass. Is going to be great, but it's glass doors. And so once we get that entrance in, people are free to come and go as they please. And that's what I think. You're right, honey. I think, and I think there's so much probably to that, even psychologically, that right now we don't have an entrance. So people, can I get in there? And we want people to know, yes, you can. Yes. We are here. The church is here. We need to be a hospital in the community. And so I think that entrance is probably, in my mind, so important. And then strategically, the build out for the kids, we can't tear down the wall and extend the worship center until our kids area is done. Yep. And so this is the next step of the phase of the process is let's get this kids area done. Let's get the playground in. Let's get the sensory rooms for the special needs. Let's get all of these things happening where then we're able to, because the church is really growing and it's amazing. But all that to say, be a part of the vision here of Anchor Church. I think the vision God's given us it's a huge God-sized vision, but I don't think God just gave it to us accidentally. It was intentionally and purposefully. And I really believe with all my heart, God's doing something incredible through our church.
Yeah.
And so be a part of it. Pray with us. Partner with us. Give and be a part with us of the extending this kids area. And make sure, whatever you do, you're putting Jesus first in your life and the life of your kids so they know the priority out there. It is Jesus Christ. Always has been, always will be. Hey, we love you. Have a great week. We'll see you this weekend.